We're using it for all things real to real.
What are the machines have you got behind you? Because I will confess, I don't know too much about the Scullys and the Ampexes. Just not really had the exposure to them. So that's a Studer, I can tell that.
An 810 with the face off, and then a 1/4-inch 4-channel Otari ATR 10.
Wow, you've got a workshop here. Is it just you in there?
Yeah.
Really? I thought mine's not as big as that, and I'm thinking, it's just me in here sometimes. Wow, that's an MCI, isn't it, in the background?
Yeah, some M79s, 3M.
Oh right.
So it got work cut out for me on those ones.
Uh-huh.
Some 2-channel 820s. I can't get the camera right. Some MTR 10s, a whole bunch of stuff undercover.
You got months of work here. You got months of it.
Press Play, the Real Resilience podcast, dedicated to all things tape recorder.
Dan Labrie giving me a post-interview overview of the machines he had in his workshop. As I said, he must have had months of work lined up there, and I hope he has worked his way through it by now. I say by now, as the interview he gave me featured in episode 24 of Press Play. But after that, the podcast went into hiatus as I dealt with personal issues. But now we are back, and I welcome you to episode 26 of Press Play, the podcast from Real Resilience, dedicated to all things tape and tape recorder. I say tape recorder rather than reel-to-reel, as I've entered the dark side and now offer service support to a particular type of cassette machine, the L-cassette, a short-lived, 4 years actually, format from 1976 to 1980. It was planned by Sony as a cross between the higher quality reel-to-reel could offer, it used 1/4-inch tape running at 3.75 IPS, and the convenience of the Philips compact cassette. But like reel-to-reel, vinyl, and the format that saw L-cassette off, being compact cassette, it's seen a sort of resurgence. After a client asked me to service a machine, I searched out one for myself and now offer service support for the format. Wiki L-cassette, that's ELCASET, to find out about the format and who, apart from Sony, made the machines at that time. What else? Well, sticking to reel-to-reel, don't forget we sell RTM tape in the UK. Our promotion in December 2023 was a great success and promoted us to people who otherwise didn't realise we sold tape. We stock all of RTM's 1/4-inch products on 10.5-inch diameter spools, and we have just started to hold 2-inch stock for studios too. You can find it and order from the Real Resilience shop at realresilience.co.uk. Now, on to part 2 of my long overdue interview with Dan Labrie of Myriad Magnetic. Part 1 was about Dan's background and his experience in the reel-to-reel format, whilst part 2 majors on Myriad Magnetic, his company based in Philadelphia.
We're using it for all things real to real.
What sectors are you supporting these, and indeed what machines are you supporting? Is it in the professional recording sector or in the consumer? People want a 1/4-inch for their home listening.
Yeah, I've got caught by that. Like I've worked with I'm in Philadelphia, and I work. A couple people found me or a referral, and they say, "Oh, I got this Akai, and can you take a look at it?" And I say, well, you seem like a nice guy. I'll take a look at it, like that's kind of where I want to end it, just looking at it. And I want to be a good person to somebody contacting me. And I did it for, past 10 years where, it's like, I want to build a good book of customers or clients, but I also want to have a good book of other technicians so that when someone calls me with that, I know who wants to work on it. I don't know if it makes them happy, but at least I give somebody something to work with when we get off the phone. So, who am I helping now? I have, a base of client from leaving ATR, in professional recording. And then there's, my name's kind of floated around with some institutional client as well. But again, with, ATR 100s and a lot of 50/50s, Otari 50/50s these days. And I'm okay with that, I'm happy to. And if anything, I want to just be better at doing it more than a hobby. So, how you can kind of like poke at something and take care of it for people. But, you know, like at ATR, it was like you wanted to just have everything tight, from like a source for every single part, you know, whether you're making it or phoning up China for the parts, whatever you got to do. I know it's going to be a growth period to do it, but this idea that you can really kind of hammer down every facet of a machine, that's what I'd like to provide. Now, you know, is it possible with some of this stuff due to availability? I don't know, but, you know, I'm going to find out.
I'd probably agree with you there that, you know, is it a possibility that it's great to have, as you said, a source of parts for every little nut, bolt and piece you ever built, but that has changed now. That's moved on, and sometimes we're all in an education process to find that piece again, or an equivalent, or indeed some things that are better than they were perhaps sort of 20, 30 years ago in the heyday of tape. Now, You're on the East Coast, is that correct? Or east of the United States? It's Philadelphia you're in? What's business like in terms of tape usage in the States? Is it countrywide and there's enough business to keep you going there?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm not going to speak as Myriad Magnetic at this point. You know, I'll speak from my experience, you know, with sort of the exposure to all the different things, whether you're selling tape with ATR Magnetic or ATR Services. But yeah, like, you know, you have like your sort of obvious three of New York and Nashville and Los Angeles, and they sort of they live up to their reputation, these towns. And, you know, and we saw that with the tape purchase. And then when it comes to like the rest of the country, I think you see the sort of, you know, just well-established studios throughout the country that almost have a reputation about their use of analog tape. The Steve Albini of Chicago and John Vanderslice, Tiny Telephone in San Francisco. So there are these, I don't want to call them intense, but really sort of devout operations to the medium. And yeah, I think they kind of they might get the most press, but I think they have a great influence on people all over the country, you know, the West Coast, East Coast, South, and in the middle. So, you know, I think about like who I'm speaking to, and I don't speak to anybody just on the East Coast. You know, folks send me stuff from, you know, outside of the States and, you know, across the country to work on. So it was never a local thing when I was at ATR, and I don't intend it to be a very localized business moving forward with Myriad.
And how about the studios themselves? You mentioned sort of New York, Los Angeles, Nashville. I mean, a lot of those sort of record companies based there, they're commercial operations, it's business. And therefore, if they can get the product out, should we say, more cost effectively or with a less eye on the artistic area, they're probably going to go for that. But are there studios going, we want to take tape on? Because there's no getting away from it. As you said earlier in our conversation, you know, there's certain artifacts and there's certain aspects you've got to consider with analog tape recording, and it is inch for inch, second for second, an expensive format. So are there studios investing in it saying we want to record analog, or indeed is there client or artist pressure to say I want to record my next track, my next album in the analog domain using an analog reel-to-reel recorder?
I'm not entirely sure about, you know, where the pressure would be coming from, but, you know, I would think that when you talk to studio owners or just people interested in this equipment at all, it's a passion product. And you got to assume that someone like Mike Spitz was involved in it over a passion over just like the medium, the technology, the machines. And I think something like nostalgia is not really enough to, you know, to make your living on it. I think you need like a really deep passion to do it. And the people that are interested, you know, in buying like a rebuilt machine from any of the many machine rebuild companies out there today, or looking for the deal on the scrap heap or the auction, you know, I think they're all intensely passionate about whether it's using machines or just making great sounding records. So yeah, the accountants probably do not dictate the success or like the growth of analog tape machine usage, but I would certainly bet that the engineers, the studio owners, and or at least the studio owners that are involved in it and recording, they're the ones that are, they're just so too excited. They need to have it, that kind of thing.
I think you're right there. It will probably be the accountants who will probably put the brakes on this. Say, why do you want to invest in this? What's wrong with this digital piece of kit? It's far cheaper and more consistent, and it does the job, gets the product out there, and the punters buy the records. With Myriad Magnetic, what are you supporting machines, servicing them, or are you taking complete junkers and rebuilding them and selling them on? What's your main business strands?
Yeah, I think I've done very few sort of like a full rebuild for somebody. So at ATR Service, I'm used to doing a sort of like multiple month project of, tearing down a machine and doing the sort of cosmetic and electromechanical work. I've done less of that and more like some drop off work, handle a machine, take care of it, sort of recommission work for people. There's ups and downs to that, but one thing that I'm not too keen on is being, I don't want to resell. I don't want to be the guy to get the deal, put the labor in, and then, be the guy with the insane price on Reverb or something. So, I guess I'll do the tech work and you can sell it on Reverb, but it's just where I want to fit in is like, with these other models, the 810 or MTR10 that I have interest in, if I feel good about a program that I've built around, reworking one of those systems, I would offer, that as an item for sale. The ATR 100, I feel confident in providing that. And yeah, what I've done thus far is mostly been sort of light rebuilding and mostly related to just servicing smaller machines or head assembly work or board repair for the ATR 100.
Your clients, they are open-eyed about how much it costs to keep these machines going, are they? You said it's a passion for them, but there's still sometimes there's kind of like this passion and rose-tinted spectacles. I want to get analog and it's all going to be great. And then you actually you realize how much this is going to cost. They're open-eyed about it, are they? They know what they're getting into, or are you still finding it's how much?
That's another thing too. It's all like my perspective. So my perspective is like just providing the services and not necessarily wondering where the budgets are coming from. So what I want to do is I want to provide absolutely fair pricing related to whether it's labor or for parts, and their need will dictate whether they have the budget for that. You don't really try to like give breaks to selectively, but you work with people based on what they have. So when you hear about like a vendor say, "Oh, what's your budget?" It's like, well, what are the services? Because you try to make something that fits a budget, you're not going to really end up with too much. But, like the idea of a tape head, getting a replacement head can cost more than large chunk of machines currently being, bought and sold these days. So how great is the need? How important is the work that needs to be done? But when you see not even historically significant pieces of outboard gear, being priced well beyond most tape machines, I just think that, people that work with tape machines are just kind of fitting in somewhere in there, because there are many, not even that esoteric pieces of kit that are surpassing the tape machine expense. And so it doesn't seem to be problematic. That's for sure. Most people are concerned about media, I got to buy, roll a 2-inch these days, et cetera, et cetera.
In the States, how do you see the format progressing? Do you think it will carry on being popular and get more and more people coming on board with it, or will it plateau, or I hope for your sake, will it not start to sort of go over the hill and roll down the other side?
Well, you ever see like those, they show like the sort of chart of vinyl sales and MP3 sales and stuff. And, it's always like MP3 sales are up here. And then right down here at the bottom of your screen, you'll see, vinyl sales have quadrupled or, increased the order of magnitude. And I think it's been like, it was so relegated that there's almost, I think that hump or that hill is really far away, that there would have to be this sort of much bigger commitment and boom and its I would say manufacturing, that we're not really going to hit that. I'm not into a doomsday conversation because I started my career in analog and I intend to, continue sort of forge onward with a career in analog. So yeah, I think a hump or a hill would be, quite far off.
I mean, from my point of view, in terms of the studios, I find it difficult to believe that a studio that's going to make an investment of several $1,000s in a machine and then have it plumbed in and then run it with the 2-inch tape is then suddenly going to decide that, oh, I'm a bit fed up with it now and I'm just going to leave it and put the dust cover over it and forget it. I just don't believe that they'll want to junk that level of investment. There might be a slowdown perhaps in the many sort of people who jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, isn't tape great? I said slowdown. I don't think it'll stop because there's still this kind of romance and people want to see reels going around, whether it's in their home or whether they're in the recording studio. But that's the way I look at it. I think there might be a slowdown in new takers, but there's still going to be a level of hardcore users. So providing the tape is still supplied and there's still media to run on these machines, and of course people like yourself who have got the skills to support them, I still think that they will carry on using them into the foreseeable future. In your working life, in particular, because frankly we're at the other end of the scales really in these. I've probably got another sort of 10 years of this game, and then I want to kind of hand over to somebody else, which indeed is what I'm doing with a couple of guys, training them up. You mentioned earlier about all the things you did, like I want you to answer the phone or I want you to change the caps on this board. These are the kind of things that I'm passing on to the two guys who work with me, because they said we want to learn about these tape machines, and I'm initially thinking it's easy to jump in too far ahead and go, well, just start stripping this motor down or just start doing it. No, you've got to step back and go. And to me, it might seem they're going to be bored. They're going to be so bored just changing the caps on a particular board or, as you said, answering the phone. But that is all part of it. And especially as you said about the tape manufacturer, you think to some people, that's just like sticking it in boxes or seeing the machine just go around producing it. But you look back and you realize it's all useful experience that you can then take forward into the future.
Yeah, you said something like when you bring somebody in the studio and the deck's rolling, or they got the flashlight and the tweaker out, and you're like, what the hell are you doing? I want to know what you're doing. I think it's in the people that make their way into studios or around music recording. There's a reason there's only like a couple guys in the band that want to work the rig and the recording kit, and it's those ones that, when they see this type of stuff, they're just drawn to it like a fire. So, as long as somebody's running it, there's going to be somebody else like getting glued to it. I think that's all you need. Just a couple people keeping them spinning.
Are you experiencing, because I am, people are using tape in ways that I'd never have initially appreciate. You said you finished college in 2010, so a little bit before your time. But in the 1980s, when I first got into this, we were just using recorders to record. But now they're using them in tape loops, they're using them in performance and artist type things. DJs are using them in mixed sessions. Is that your experience, that you're using tape in ways you think, I never, why are you using this thing in the way you are? What's your take on it?
Well, I try to think if I have any examples of that. I think it's a matter of what I've seen is it's not just that one track. Like you said, you make the best recorder to make the best recording. Let's move on to some other part of the process. When you see, through the ATR 100, you have somebody say, okay, we're going to, mix down to this machine. Oh, I needed a 4-channel because we're going to do a little 4-channel multi-track recording, or we got an old junker machine. We're just going to use it for, an echo. And you got a mastering engineer that's going to print some stems to the tape and back, or you got a university library that needs to play back, old voice recordings for somebody. So, there's a half dozen different applications with a single unit. Who knows what the intended purpose was when it was designed. At this point in time, it's got to fit so many different ways. So that's the experience. Like, you're on the other end of that, just trying to support them in whatever their endeavor is. I don't think I get as many like creative applications for tape machines, but I've certainly, browsed my fair share on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a great resource. Seeing some of the, especially seems to be the Japanese are massively into using these things in a artistic way, and it's like I've never where you're going with this, but
I think one of the cooler things I might have seen was like Chris Mara, Welcome 1979. He was saying, okay, take a 4-track recorder, 1/2-inch 4-track, and then calibrate the first 2 channels different from the second 2 channels, but print stereo to both of them. And so you can have almost simultaneous prints, with a little bit different flavor or context. And, I think that's great. It's not like too out of the box, but it's almost like a time saver. You can sort of maybe say, oh yeah, I like a +9 setup as opposed to a +3 setup for this program, or over biased significantly more than the recommended on these 2 channels, and sounds great. You can kind of give yourself more tape listening options that way. I thought that was cool.
Well, Dan Labrie of Myriad Magnetic, thank you very much for your time. I wish you every success with your business and supporting. Is it just Ampex, but what others? You mentioned Atari. What other brands are you open to?
Yeah, I think Ampex, Studer, and Atari, and for the most part, like two-track machine.
But not that Akai that they just brought in earlier.
Yeah. And if it's like 4,000 or something in the model number, I don't want it. But yeah, Studer, Ampex, Atari, and we'll try to build up the level of quality and support for the Studer and Atari as we go, but ultimately give people another outlet for support there.
Well, you got your web presence, myriadmagnetic.com, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay, right on. Thank you so much.
Find Real Resilience on the web at realresilience.co.uk and on our Facebook page, Real Resilience.
Thank you, Dan, and apologies once again for the delay in getting part 2 out there. More tape and tape-based stuff to come in our next episode, and that will drop soon when we get a Gen X's take on why tape has come back.